Today I'm going to be doing a soil texture analysis test to see what sort of soil I'm working with. I want to do this because I am looking at planting some different plants in this area. So I'm only going to be looking at this specific area, and I'm going to take 6 different samples and I'm just going to pop them into a little Nuttlex jar, and then we're going to go inside and assess the soil texture. So this is the 6 different samples that I have collected from in the garden, and I can tell already by the colour and just the general feel of it when I was digging it up that there's quite a lot of clay in there. So what we're now going to do is we're going to take this and kind of merge it all together, and we're going to form just about the size of a golf ball. And we are going to add water to it drop by drop until we get a nice consistency. Think about sort of like when you're making dough. And we are going to start taking out all of the bits of gravel or anything other than the soil itself until we form a nice smooth texture. So we're purely looking at what the texture of the soil is. We're not taking into account all the other stuff that's in there. So here's a good sample. Now I can tell that the previous owners have added some sand into some areas, and I have a suspicion that the samples I've taken, which have been, I'd say, about 10 centimeters to 15 centimeters deep, it's a little bit of a false reading because there has been sand incorporated into those areas. I could just tell straight away by the texture. But I've got a nice little sample size here, so I actually do need to add a little bit more water than I thought because of that sand consistency. So you'll see I'm just adding a little bit at a time. Now I don't have a spatula, but ideally you'd want to have a spatula so that you can literally knead it, and you're adding just a drop at a time. And yes, this is messy. It's allowed to be messy. I'm going to add a little bit more of my soil that has no wood chips or bark or anything. So I want to get a good sort of bit smaller than a golf ball size, I'd say. That's why I've got a bit of a big selection, so that just in case some samples have more wood chips in it than others, that way it's safe. Okay, so again, we're just working it into a ball. This is feeling very, smooth already. I can feel a little bit of grit, which is telling me it's going to have some sand in it. So I'm kind of guessing this is going to be sandy clay or clayey sand. Okay, I'm working it, I'm kneading it. Just because I can form a ball now, it's still got like aggregates in it, bits and pieces, so I'm going to continue to knead it. Imagine you are working dough, imagine you are working with plasticine at home, and if it's more clayey, the more you will need to knead it. And you might feel a rock, so when you get that rock, just take it out. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to keep kneading it. I'm going to keep adding a smidge more soil, and therefore a smidge more water. Why am I doing this inside, you ask? Oh, because I have no brains sometimes, and yes, this does get messy. But it's nice to be in the home doing this sometimes on a cold day. Okay, getting there. I'm just going to make sure I've got no bits and pieces of rocks. There's a tiny little bit of gravel, so out that goes. I don't want anything in there other than the soil, so just keep on working it. Now this is it's actually beautiful to play with. It's pure clay with a little bit of sand. But what I'm now going to do is I'm going to roll a ball. Because I can roll such a beautiful ball, as you can see, it's very smooth. That tells me straight away it's very smooth. Like I can't feel too much sandy texture, so that tells me it's obviously more clay than sand. But there is a small component, a tiny component of grittiness in there, so that tells me that there is a little bit of sand in there, and I could actually see that when I was digging up the sample. So now I'm going to just quickly wash my hands so I can take the next shot and show you the next component, which is the ribboning test. Okay, now that I've got my tape measure, So now what we're going to do is the ribboning test. So for the ribboning test, all we got to do is put the little ball that we formed between our thumb and our index finger. And we are going to literally try and make, very creatively, a ribbon out of it. Now, what we're doing is we are working out with the tape measure how long a ribbon we are able to form before the ribbon breaks off. As you can see, mine has held together perfectly. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this onto a plate, my ribbon, and I'm going to measure it, which I will show you next. Here is the ribbon that I have formed. I'm now going to measure it. So from the very, very top to the very, very bottom, well, it's like 13 centimeters long, which is extremely long. So I'm going to put a link to a table or an image of the table that we use to reference what that means. But basically, if we can form a ball that handles like plasticine, which we saw that I could, and it can be molded into rods, this is a rod, this little ribbon thing, without breaking, and the ribbons are 75 mil or 7.5 centimeters or more, we are dealing with medium to heavy clay. There is a more sort of precise and detailed table to reference off of the DPI website, which is the one I normally use, but I thought I would use my uni one because it's something that I have to do for a project that I'm doing. And I'll tell you what, if people go through my phone, all they will see is pictures of this, and I'll be surprised if they don't think that I've got images of crap all over my phone, hey. But anyway, that's what it is. So now I know that I'm working with medium to heavy clay, and the next part that I'm going to be doing is a pH test on this, which I will show you as well. Okie dokie, so now it is time to test the pH of this soil, and this is the test kit that I use. I have a few of these around the place. So what is in it? Let's have a look. So the first thing that we've got is a pH test dye indicator, and we have some barium sulfate powder and a little scooper. This is a new kit, so I'm just going to quickly rip out the scooper. Just a little scooper that we can kind of mix all of the liquid and the powder together with. It also comes with a testing plate, which is this. Some instructions if you've not done this before, and also a pH color chart. So what I'm going to do, because I had my little ribbon on an actual plate, is I'm going to take some of that soil and I'm going to put a very small sample onto my little plate, just like that. And now I am going to simply add a couple of drops of the dye indicator to it. I'm going to see if I can move this so you can see it. There we go. Be careful with this because it does stain everything. So, because this is so clayey, I'm just going to have the little scooper ready so it doesn't go everywhere. And I'm just going to mix this in and sort of work it into the soil. We're going to work it, baby. And there we go. Just enough to sort of cover the soil, yeah? It's very dense, so I'm just putting a bit extra in to be safe. Right, now we've put our pH dye indicator on. Now it's time to do the barium sulfate. And it's just like a powder puffer. And we're just going to puff it on. Then once we've, applied a decent coat to the top, we are going to wait 1 minute to see what the pH is. So I'm going to flip the camera around. I'm going to show you the results. All right, so You're meant to wait around a minute, and then you sort of hold up your guide to it and you match the color as closely as you can. So I do find sometimes when I take videos of these, the color in real life is a smidge different, but it looks pretty accurate through the lens because I'm in good light. So I would wait a little bit longer normally, but I'm pretty confident that I know where the pH is at. I know it's between 6 and 6.5, so you can sort of see we're matching that powder color with it. You can see it's not 5, it's not 5.5. It's sort of between 6 and 6.5, so I'm very confident that I'm kind of going to say it's 6.5. And that is how we test the pH.